Today was a good day. I have been sick all week, and I was scheduled to compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament today in Sacramento. And as of last night, I was not sure if I was going to compete or not. Basically, it depended on how I felt waking up this morning. Woke up this morning and I could have competed. And if I weren't traveling anywhere tomorrow, I might have competed. But instinctively, I just decided no. Like, the answer was no. And I'm glad I did that. I went to Sacramento. I supported my teammates. And ended up having a very interesting experience. But I'm glad that I didn't force myself to compete. I was able to get past my ego, which said, oh yeah, you got to compete, to really ask myself what's best for me. And even though I felt better this morning than I did yesterday, there was enough fatigue that I knew that, yeah, I can push myself, but I'm really going to pay for it later, and I don't feel like putting myself through that. And tomorrow, I'm getting up at 3 a.m. to go to Boston, spend a week at my parents' house. So I don't feel like being exhausted doing that. I also don't feel like being sick while I'm at my parents' house because, I want to be able to enjoy myself and get some rest. But also the point of my going there is to be able to take care of my dad while my mom goes away on a trip. So if I'm sick, that doesn't really help my dad. So more important things at play than my tournament jiu-jitsu record. And turned out to be an interesting day. One of the guys who was there is a friend of one of my teammates, and he's a world champion. This guy's the best in the world, and he was competing in the tournament, and I had met him before, and my teammate that he's friends with was competing, and when that guy was competing, our teacher, our coach, was coaching him. And also this other guy who's the best in the world was also coaching him at the same time. And at times giving him different advice than what our teacher was giving him. And I found this really offensive. And I knew that the guy who's the world champion knew that our teacher was also coaching him. Like, they weren't standing next to each other, but they were standing close enough to each other that, one could hear the other. So I found this super disrespectful. And I kind of bided my time because the guy who was the world champion, he had to compete, and I didn't really want to mess with him before his match. So I just waited till everything was done, till he had competed. And then he was just kind of hanging out, and I went over and I shook his hand and I said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? We went off to the side, and I told him, it seemed like you were coaching this guy at the same time as our coach was coaching him. And he said, yeah. I said, that seemed a little disrespectful to me. And he basically told me to go fly a kite. He said, well, if your coach says something, then I'll address it. But what belt are you, by the way? And, I said, well, I'm not a black belt. He said, exactly. So mind your own business. And he walked away. So, that was kind of how that went. And I was, I didn't know what to expect from the conversation. But I was okay with it. I was happy with myself. I did what I needed to do. And then I went over and stood next to my coach, and we were waiting for the next match, and just kind of was hanging out. And then that guy came up to my coach and said, hey, no disrespect, from before, basically apologized to my coach. And I cried, when I saw that. That was, really touching to me. That, I had some effect. And I took a risk and, did something that a lot of people, excuse me, excuse me, a lot of people probably would not have done. And it paid off. And it paid off anyway. Even if that guy hadn't done that, it was worth it to me. But the fact that he said something to my coach, I was really offended on behalf of my coach. And I'm glad that guy said something. And, he showed class in doing it. He told me to F off, and that's fine. But, whatever. He reconsidered afterwards and went and did the right thing. And that's okay. That's fine. He showed a lot of class in doing that. And I appreciate the fact that he did that. And then as I was leaving, and after I had said goodbye to everybody, I walked up to him and I shook his hand and I said, thank you. And I think he knew what I meant. I don't think I didn't have to say more than that. And then I just walked away. So I did not fight today, but I was a warrior. And, yeah. And, that brings up a good kind of topic, because there is this kind of mentality in jiu-jitsu that if you're a black belt, you're superior to everybody else, which, you are technically in jiu-jitsu. But I've seen situations where people who are black belts use their rank to actually practice lower standards, and they let themselves get away with it because they're a black belt. And that's not something that I respect or approve of. And I think it's something that should change in jiu-jitsu culture. If you're the highest rank, you should uphold the highest standards, and you should be an example for other people, not give yourself a break when it comes to standards. So, anyway, it was interesting to see that. It was a really interesting day, and I'm proud of myself for how I handled myself. It's not the first time recently that I've spoken up about something that I didn't have to speak up about. And yeah, I like this pattern that I'm seeing in myself.